What's up, Rad Dads? Welcome back to another episode of the Rad Dads podcast, hosted by none other than the two raddest dads on the East Coast. In studio tonight is myself. I call myself Rob again, Rob.
Let's not start that again.
We also have a special guest on tonight. Not only is he a Rad Dad, but also a partner at CEO International, where he coaches CEOs on how to be successful. He co-founded National Services Group, which employs 2,500 people across 3 brands nationwide. He is a leader, entrepreneur, a family man. Following the suicide of his 14-year-old son in 2018, Jason started the foundation tellmystory.org, a nonprofit organization built to educate and empower parents by sharing the best and latest resources they need to identify and understand how to support their children's mental health struggles. The foundation also helps generate awareness through powerful media projects that compels parents and kids to share their stories. Jason has shared his experience in 2 TED Talks, the documentary film Tell My Story, a new film, What I Wish My Partner Knew, and Tell My Story's other educational programs. He is starting a nationwide campaign offering educators and parents free tools and resources to support their children and students' mental health. His mission is to prevent other families from going through this unimaginable experience and kickstarting the conversation around mental health at home between parents and children. Please help me welcome to the show, Jason Reid. Jason, welcome to the show.
Thank you, gentlemen. It's an honor to be here. Thank you.
Thanks for joining. So, Jason, is there anything else you want to expand on besides what my co-host already eloquently laid out?
No, I think that's, it's interesting. Give you a little bit more backstory on this. Ryan passed away 5 years ago in March, and we didn't see it coming. We didn't see the signs. There were no signs from my perspective because we weren't looking for them. Now, when you look back on it, there were some signs. I just didn't know what signs were because we, like a lot of people, we thought mental health issues were somebody else's problem, not ours. So we weren't looking for them. And, it's interesting, when it all happened, life's never the same, right? So I've had a wonderful life. I've had one of those lives that people probably want to have in a lot of ways in terms of success and things I've done and all that kind of stuff. But when something like this happens, it's a gut punch and nothing's ever the same. So when it did happen and Ryan passed away, I wanted to make a difference. And so I got home the day after we took him off of life support and decided I was going to start a foundation. And the first one I founded was actually called chooselife.org because I wanted what I want people to do, choose life over death. So I said, choose life. And, I didn't realize till, 6 months in when someone said to me that was the old anti-abortion site. And that's why it cost me $10,000. So I'm like, oh. So we actually ran with that for a bunch of years. And if you go to chooselife.org, it's still there. But my original concept was I wanted to end teen suicide by the year 2030 because I was a business guy and I thought that everybody was doing this wrong. So everybody's just doing this the wrong way. They're raising awareness for suicide and everybody's already aware. I'm going to go in there with a big goal. I'm going to make this happen because that's what I do. And I was candidly arrogant and I was angry. And I realized in the last couple of years that, well, pretty soon after that there's a lot of really good people in the space trying to make a difference. But the problem is overwhelming. And so I changed a lot of my focus in the last 12 to 18 months during COVID, after COVID, to really trying to say that here's the message I want to give to parents. And that is that there are not enough therapists and psychiatrists and psychologists, doctors, in-house therapy sessions, all that kind of stuff that you might want for your kids. There's just not enough of them. And then if you go into the whole idea of A, B, and C players, well, there's A, B, and C players in every single part of life. So not every therapist is a great therapist. And then you get to the point of saying, how many actually want to deal with suicidal teens? Well, if I'm a therapist, it's a hell of a lot easier to say I'm going to deal with marital trauma or a marital therapist or all that kind of stuff, because there's not much to lose. I work with you, you get divorced, you don't get divorced. whatever. I'm never going to think about it again. But if I'm going to take on a suicidal teen and I lose that teen, that's something I'm going to live with the rest of my life. So there's not enough of those people, and they're amazing people. There's not enough of them to help you. And so my message to parents is you have to own your kids' mental health the way you own your kids' physical health. You have to be the one, because there's not enough people out there to make a difference. And that's really what I'm trying to educate people on and help them on and give them the tools they can use themselves to be better parents. And one final thing before I jump into your questions, guys, is that, it's just the reality of the whole situation is that, I don't want to make this about suicide today, if we can do that. Because the chances that your child is going to die of suicide, probably pretty slim. Like, even though it is the number 2 killer of kids, got it. But what's that? 7,000 to 10,000 kids in a year. It's a lot of kids. Chance to be your kid? Probably not. But 40% of kids right now and adults are experiencing major depression and anxiety issues that can lead to something terrible. So 40% of kids. So chances are one of your kids will have a time where they're experiencing major depression or anxiety. And that's no way to live. And we need to be better at talking them through those issues and helping them through those issues. Let's not make this about suicide today, because that's probably not going to happen. But depression and anxiety, there's a good chance you're going to run across it. Make sense?
Yeah. Absolutely. And Jason, our condolences for the loss of your son. I know it's 5 years, and as you were getting into it, it seems as fresh as it seems as it was yesterday. You were getting all choked up, and I can't imagine the feeling. The question I have, or we have, how do you educate parents to identify signs? What is there? What should they know? And the tools that you have and resources, what should they look for?
So I'm gonna give you today the things you should look for, and then things that you can do yourself to make a difference. Because I think that's really important that everybody who's listening is going to walk away with, okay, what can I do? I want them to have tools so they can walk away with. I'm going to give you today, but let's start with the signs. When your kid changes, it's easy to say, well, they're becoming teenagers. They're going through, puberty, and therefore they're a little grumpy. Maybe, and maybe not. I thought Ryan was 13 going on 14. He was grumpy, right? I had 4 kids. I had 3 older than he was. He was the least grumpy. I thought that was the least I didn't have anything to worry about. But when you look back on it, right, Ryan was spending more time in his room, caring less about school, less about his friends, and a lot grumpier. All signs that he's not thinking straight. But I thought, we hung out and we were having fun and we watched movies every night and everything was fine. And I thought we had a good relationship. Turns out he was hiding everything from me, as I found out later. But you have to watch for changes. And not every change is going to mean that your child is suicidal, your child is depressed or anxious, but far too many times we don't take this stuff seriously. And a lot of it has to do with when we grew up, it just wasn't a big deal. Like, I'm like, well, you guys are younger than me, but I'm 56, right? So I'm going, there just wasn't a whole bunch of this stuff going on when I was 56 because the world was different. The kids are under so much pressure right now. They're thinking about so many different things. Is this making sense? Like, guys, when I grew up, the phone rang. It was on the wall, right? And my father answered it. And he decided if you were going to talk to that person on the phone or not, how long you were going to talk to him for. And then he stood there and listened to your whole conversation. That's what it was like being 14 when I grew up. I didn't know or care about what was going on in the world because I was a kid. My job was to go to school and go out and play and nothing else. I didn't watch the news. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't care. Right? It was 42 years ago. We didn't care about that kind of stuff. You take a look at your kids, and I know you guys have young kids, and you're in the thick of things right now. Your kids get to think about this. They get to think about global warming and whether the world will be around in 10 years. They get to think about whether there's going to be a nuclear attack in a war with Russia or a war with China. They got to think about whether COVID was going to kill them and all their friends. They get to worry about how much school costs, how they're going to pay for it, if they're going to be able to get into school or not in college. The pressure these kids are under is so much different than it used to be. So yes, what happens? You got to look for change. How are they feeling? Are they worried about stuff? You've got to have those conversations with them. Am I making sense?
The floor is yours. The stage is yours. It's not a problem at all.
So that's the kind of stuff you want to look for changes. And the biggest thing is that whether you see the changes or not, because sometimes they might hide them, right? Here's the misnomer. People think that it's always the sad kid in the corner who's not talking to anybody, who takes their own life or is depressed or anxious. It's not. It's also the quarterback. It's also the cheerleaders, the head cheerleader. It's the kids are the most friendly that everybody thinks, how did that ever happen? They're keeping it inside. So it's not so much about the signs as it is about having a relationship with your children where they feel like they can tell you anything, where they can talk to you, where they want to talk to you. And that's where a lot of us, including me, kind of probably screw up. Because we have a parent relationship, or in some cases, too much of a friend relationship with our kids, but our kids don't really feel like they can tell us whatever's going on in their mind. Does that make sense?
I've met a lot of families where they have kids that are open with them. They tell them the first minute they come through the door from school, they tell them about everything that happened at school, good, bad, whatever it was, just conversation, with their parents. And then there's other parents where kid comes home from school. How was the school? Okay. Anything happen? Nope. So it's like, all right, now you got to try and extract the information from the kids to see, what happened.
And that's most. That's most kids, right? So most kids and most parents have this relationship where teenagers absolutely don't want to talk to their parents. When they become 12, I mean, they're amazing, right? When they're 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, you love them, they love you, you're their hero. They become 13, 14, you're like, what the hell happened to my kid? Not all kids, but a lot of kids, right? Now they're hanging out with different people. Now they don't want to talk to you. Now you're not cool. Please drop me off like 5 blocks before school because I don't want anybody to see you. Like, all that stuff goes on, right? So the biggest question I get is like, Jay, okay, I get it. You want me to talk to my kids. You want me to be open with my kids. You want my kids to be able to talk to me. Like, but my kid doesn't want to talk to me. Like, how do I talk to my kids? That's one of the bigger things I got, right? So I like to start with telling you how not to talk to your kids. Here's the way you don't want to talk to your kids. You don't want to barge into their room when they're doing something else and say, we need to talk. Because I just listened to this podcast. I need to know what's going on in your life, and you need to tell me now. That's the wrong way to talk to your kids. Because candidly, the only time they get by themselves, and the only thing they have in life that is theirs, is that little room and that little bed and that little space, and they need it. And when you barge in, you're jumping in their space. And I get it. You paid for the house. It's yours. You own everything. Blah, 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 blah. I get all of it, right? It doesn't friggin' matter. The only thing they have in life is that one little space. Give them that space. Don't try to have the tough conversation in their space. And here's what happens. You all know how this works. There's times when your kids want to talk to you. We all know it. It's always inconvenient. And suddenly, and boys especially, right? They'll be suddenly really talkative. That's the time you lean in. Okay, tell me more. Tell me more. Tell me more. It could be when you're driving home from school. It's after a baseball game. It's after a soccer game. Maybe you take them fishing. Maybe you do whatever you're going to do with them, right? But they're just suddenly talkative. And boys don't talk a lot. Girls talk a lot. Boys don't talk a lot. And maybe they talk to you, maybe they talk to your wife, whatever. You got to figure that part out, right? But when they lean in and they want to talk, that's when you go for it. That's when you go, okay, tell me more. I want to know more. And here's where we all screw it up, or most of us screw it up. When they start talking to us, instead of listening, we do what? What do you think we do?
We try to either correct or challenge them.
Yeah, because we're parents, right? So we're going to help them with what they have their problem. We're going to fix their problem, or we're going to use this as a teaching moment, right? Because that's what parents do. The moment we start doing that, depending on the kid, it can completely backfire. And let me tell you how that works. If you're dealing with someone who is actually depressed, who does have anxiety, who might be suicidal, and they open up to you, and you try to fix them, what happens? Do you know? Any ideas? They shut down.
They're going to shut down.
Yeah. They don't want to talk to you. And the next time, they won't talk to you. But we all think we're doing the right thing, right? So I want to give you this analogy for a second. I live in Southern California, and most days I'll look outside my window. There's not a cloud in the sky, except for this winter. There's not a cloud in the sky. If I was sitting here with someone who is depressed or anxious, and they looked outside, they may only see clouds. And there's nothing I can say that's going to make them believe there's no clouds. Nothing. They're only going to see clouds. And I go, dude, there's not a cloud in that sky. What are you talking about? Are you nuts? Where's the cloud? I don't see the cloud. They're only going to see clouds. The only thing you can do to someone who feels depressed or anxious is seeing life differently, and it's never logical to you or me. I've never been depressed. I'm not going to get it. Right? All you can do is ask them about their clouds. Tell me about your clouds. What do they look like? Are they always there? How do they make you feel? Do they come and go? Are there good clouds and bad clouds? Describe them to me. And then resist with every bit of your body and to go, dude, there's no clouds. And that's silly. Why do you think that way? The minute you try to judge them or fix them, they shut down. And we all try to do it because it's natural as a parent to try. Because they tell you that they broke up with their girlfriend and they're 15 years old and their world has now come to an end and they don't see a reason to live anymore. And we say, "Oh my gosh, there's so many you're such a great looking guy or a great looking girl, and there's so many other people out there. If they don't see the beauty in you the way I do, then screw them. There's so many other people out there. You're going to be fine." That doesn't help someone who's really depressed or anxious. That makes them go, you don't get it, and I'm not going to talk to you. And what you want them to do is want to tell you everything because they feel safe telling it to you. And this is hard for people. This is hard. This is really hard. But this is what a therapist does, right? They get you to talk, and they get you to tell you how they feel. They don't judge you. And then the more you talk, there's something magical that happens. And it is magical, guys. They feel better because they're talking. The whole concept behind talk therapy is getting someone to talk about their problems and open up about their problems and just talk about them. And you don't have to be a therapist. You don't have to be trained. You don't have to go to school. You just have to talk to people, ask questions, and listen. And it works really well with all your kids. And by the way, guys, if you haven't figured it out yet, and you probably have, it works well with your wife too. She doesn't want your advice. How many times have your wife said, "I don't want you to tell me what to do. I don't want you to fix my problem. I just want you to listen."
You to listen.
So true.
Sal hears it all the time.
Look, I'm a good listener. I try to, and here, yeah, I try to give the guidance to my wife that she is looking for.
If she asks for it.
Right, sure. I don't, if she's not, I typically know when she's looking for some guidance. And I give her two scenarios.
Yeah.
And it's up to her to decide on which scenario she wants to take.
I'm sure you're great at it. I mean, you guys are doing this podcast. You guys are you're here giving people advice because you know what you're doing, and you talk to so many different people about it. But I'm saying in general, it's hard though, because when your kid is hurting, all you want to do is help them. But the natural reaction, how we want to help them, it's just it backfires on us.
Yeah, at least in my experience as a parent, you want to fix their problems. You want them to be a kid forever. It's but part of our job and the job we signed up for when we decided to have kids is to prepare our kids to become adults. And that's one of probably for me, one of the hardest obstacles, especially with a 12 and 9-year-old, is you're like, all right, you're about to hit that cusp. And I could see you hitting it, but we got to prepare you. You got to start growing up a little bit. And I remember even when I was a kid, my dad would be like, hey, you got to grow up. And I'm like, no, I don't want to grow up. It's forced upon you when you get to high school, when you get to college. And, I think that's one of the things a lot of people, talk about college and how it's not really required. I think one of the things college does do is kind of prepare you to be an adult by being out on your own, being that segue.
Yeah, of course it does.
But
of course, I'm not saying that you don't want to build resilient kids. We absolutely want to build resilient kids. I'm not saying go in there and protect your kids from every scrape and everything and every breakup in their lives. I'm not saying any of that. I'm saying instead of going and fixing it for them when it happens, just listen to them about it. And only give advice when they want it, because that's how you get people to listen to you. That's how people want to talk to you. And
yeah,
I think one of the big problems we have is we haven't grown resilient kids, right? We bubble wrap them, and therefore when the little problem hits, they're like, my whole world fell apart. And that's not my generation problem. This is more of a younger generation problem where everybody wanted to make sure everybody got a trophy. I mean, not how I grew up. I was picked last in every sport every single time, and that's my biggest lesson in life.
It is I'm going to admit, it is definitely a challenge for me not to give my kids advice on how to fix the issue that they're having. I'm guilty of it. If they come to me with a problem, or if they're telling me something that there's an issue, I try to give them the solution to their problem instead of just listening to them. I try to fix it.
Because you care and you love them. Yeah, and you love them, and you're not doing anything wrong. You're being a great dad. I'm just saying that if you're dealing with a kid who wants it, who's like, they don't have any, they're not depressed, they're not anxious, maybe they just want advice. They might just be, I want advice, tell me what to do. But instead of, my suggestion is still offering and telling them, here's what you do, dude, guys, I own 10 different companies. I coach 20 more. My entire day is people coming to me with, I have a problem, what do I do? Like from 5 a.m. till 7 o'clock every night. That's my life. The phone rings constantly. It's jam packed from all that time with calls every hour on the hour with, I have a problem. No one calls me with anything good, right? So there's nothing good. There's nothing. No one calls Jay with, I want to tell you a great story about something good that happened. Like, okay, I have a problem. I'm like, all right, fine, let's talk about it. So I get it, right? But they're asking for advice. You just have to make sure that they want your advice. And instead of jumping in with, here's how you do it. Like, well, how do you think you should solve it? Like, what could you do? What's another way to deal with that? Like, how did you feel? What did you do? And what are you going to do tomorrow?
So that's so true. Even with anything in school that they're dealing with, or in sports, it's or with their friends. It's like, all right, what are you gonna do? How are you gonna handle? How are you gonna handle that? Well, Dad, what's the answer? I'm not giving you an answer. You show me how, you came up with that answer, and I'll help you with how to think about it. I'm not going to give you the answer. Especially with the math they do today in sixth grade. I don't know if we were doing that math at sixth grade, but it's a lot of, you got to think through and make sure you understand what the problem is, and if you don't understand the concept, you're not going to get, no matter what you do next, the next day or the next day or the next day, you're not going to get it right. So I'm not going to sit here and feed you the answer. And I 100% agree with you. It's, don't provide the solution, make them think it through. And I assume you do the same thing with your clients. It was like, hey, okay, you got a problem, let's think it through, and let's see if we can get you to come up with the answer as we talk about it. And that's what I do with my teams. And when we have issues, we kind of talk it through. And all right, it's not going to take one of us, it'll maybe take 3 or 4 of us, or multiple conversations to kind of alleviate the situation. So
but
I
you
agree
also
with you.
learn what people want,
it's really
right?
important. Yep.
Yeah, but you start to learn what people want. I've got some clients who just tell me what to do. I'm going to go do it. I'm like, great. Here's what you need to go do. And I've got some who want to talk through it. I've got some of my kids, they'll call me up, but tell me exactly what to do because I need this. I got this problem. And my youngest 20, who's 21, and be like, don't tell me what to do. I don't want to know. Don't tell me anything. Which I have to follow up with. Don't you know how much people pay me for my advice? What's wrong with you?
But it's amazing the different personalities. So, Jason, should a parent identify, okay, I think my child has an issue.
Yeah.
I think something's not right.
Yeah.
Obviously, they're the parent. They're trying to be the parent. They're trying to do the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
What do you suggest the parent do?
Okay. So let's assume that we've got them talking, right? Because we got to that path. And I've got a couple of tools for you, too, that we just came out with that might be able to help more with that. But we've got them talking. You find out that, okay, I'm just really sad. And I just don't think I just don't know. I can't talk. I can't continue. I don't know what I'm going to do. And you get this feeling, you're like, okay, I need to ask you this question. And you have to ask this question if you feel that way. Have you ever thought about hurting yourself? I need to know. You can't be afraid to ask that question. And a lot of parents think, well, if I ask that question, I'm going to put the idea in their head. You're not putting the idea in their head. It's already in their head. All right? That you need to ask the question is, have you thought about it? Have you thought about hurting yourself? No, I'd never do that. What, are you nuts? Of course I wouldn't do that. Okay, I got to ask. Right? I'm worried. Or, yeah, I have. Okay, what's that? What have you thought about? And you got to stay calm. You can't freak out. And it's, well, I've thought about it, and okay, what does that look like? Well, I've thought about cutting myself. Okay, well, have you? Well, no, I just thought about it. Okay. I thought about taking my life. Oh, okay. People think about that from time to time. Did you have a plan or something? Because people do think about it, right? It does cross people's minds. I don't want to live. So that doesn't mean you need to take them to the hospital. That means you just have to keep talking to them. But if they can tell you, yeah, I was planning to take all the pills that are your medicine cabinet tomorrow night. That was my plan. Or God forbid, I know where you keep your gun. Then we have to get them directly to a hospital or a doctor or a hospital because that's serious. Make sure that we're having someone deal with them. And I'm, by the way, not saying that you should never have a therapist for your kids, but you should if you feel like you need to, right? But I'm saying that you don't have to you have to ask the questions to get to the problem. You can't go, hey, so my life sucks, and I don't know how I feel about it, and leave it at that. You have to go. Let's go that one step further. Does that make sense, guys?
When everything happened in 2018, how did it change how you parented your other 3 older kids?
Oh, great question. So I was Here's how I live my life. I would show up at home as a guy who had no problems. I was not very vulnerable at all. I show up as a guy who ran companies, owned companies, coached CEOs. I was an Ironman finisher, a black belt. I'd written 7 books. I speak all the time. I have no problems, no issues. Everything's great. Always a smile on my face. Kids never saw me cry. The reality of the whole thing was, I failed at 25 companies. I think at that time I might have failed at 18 companies. My kids didn't know that. I'd lost millions of dollars. Not made millions and lost millions, right? But I've lost millions of dollars. My kids never knew. My wife never knew. I had almost lost the house and gone bankrupt 3 times. No one knew. So I was not authentic at home. I showed up as a dad because I thought no one should know what's going on. I'm going to protect them. So unfortunately partially what happened, is that that's how Ryan saw me. So when Ryan had issues, he must have thought, well, it must be me. It's my dad's life. It's all good. Sorry.
Don't apologize. No need to apologize.
So I became a lot more vulnerable with my kids, with my wife, a lot more not trying to protect them. Now, I'm not suggesting by any means that you go home and tell your wife and kids you might be losing the house on Thursday. That's not what I'm going to suggest you say. But I think that if you're more vulnerable, if you're able to say, look, I had a tough day at work today, and there's this person there I just don't like, and they're kind of a bully, and you can start that conversation. Your kids can say, I got a bully at school too. What's your bully do? And there's a better connection between you and your kids. So I wasn't that guy. I showed up as Superman and no problems. And I wish I didn't. So I'm a lot more connected now.
I think that's huge, because I think most dads do come home and try to be the Superman, the protector of the family, and aren't vulnerable and aren't authentic, and honestly try to say, hey, everything's fine. Not everyone's losing millions, making millions, and losing the house, but I think honestly, when you come home, you have a tough day at work, you're like, all right, I remember the advice is always leave it in the car, or leave it somewhere else. Don't bring that negativity home, or don't bring that home. Be present, obviously, but at the same point, that's your work life. That's different. That's, you don't have to talk about that. Or, even financials. Like, my son was asking me about the stock market the other day and telling me how his friend made $60,000. I was like, first of all, there's no way. And if he did, great. I said, but, you have to understand this, based on what you do, you have to be vulnerable. I said, I've lost money. Well, how much money have you lost? Lost more than I've wanted to. And I said, it's, it's not, you're not always making money. It's a up and down battle. Mm-hmm. And I think that's, I didn't even think about it at the time. Now that you say that, I'm glad I approached it that way versus being like, no, I've never lost money. Like, I was definitely more authentic than, you traditionally are.
But we want to protect them. We want to protect them. We want to fix them. We want to protect them. And unfortunately, when you're dealing with someone who has depression, anxiety, and you show up that way, you're not helping them. That doesn't mean a kid who doesn't have any issues, it might be just fine, right? But I'm saying it's not helpful in that particular situation.
I think as men, we've been conditioned to keep things in, hide things, not not be vulnerable.
Yep.
And the effect to that is now that rubs off on the family.
Yeah, so that's that was a big change for me, and obviously a lot more time and space that I never thought I'd spend time in. If you had said to me 6 years ago we've been having this conversation, and I'd spend time on podcasts and making movies and do all the stuff I do to try and make a difference to the world, I'd be like, there's not a chance. I'm not a guy who does anything for charity ever. I'll just do that later in my life. I'm not doing it right now. But yeah, spend a lot of my time doing that stuff now.
So we're gonna go on to this has been incredible, Jason. We're gonna do the rapid fire round. It's a little bit more. You'll see.
Sure.
Favorite book.
A favorite book.
Yeah.
Oh crap! You're putting me on the spot. Yeah. What would I say? I wish I could say I read them. Oh, Never Split the Difference.
I've heard that. That's a good one.
That's a great book.
Favorite food.
Favorite food? Steak.
Favorite sports team.
I don't follow sports. I don't have time for that.
Favorite dad
I don't know. I don't know how guys who keep all the stats in their head. No offense if you guys do, about all the teams and all the players and all the. I have no idea how you do that. No idea. I have no room in my head for that.
They didn't follow sports. It's amazing.
I don't. There's zero room for that in my head.
I'm part of a fantasy football league with Rob. It's probably 4 years now.
Yeah,
4 or 5 years, and I watch football when I can, but all the guys in this fantasy football league, they are diehard football fans. So we're on a text thread, and these guys go on and on about so and so and running and yardage and the catching. It's like, oh my god, I don't have I can barely keep the stuff from work in my head. Now I gotta think about these guys catching and who's benched.
I'm just not that smart. I can't look. You want to know the time of year I hate, and this you guys can laugh. March Madness. You want to know why? Because my wife has the goddamn TV on constantly watching the damn games, and I'm trying to avoid her, trying to avoid the family room because I don't want to. I'm like, I can't. I hate it.
So I can't keep up with the guys and the discussion on football. I do watch when I can. I just don't know everybody on the team.
I will play any sport you want to. Happy to go do it even at 56, but I'm not watching it.
Yeah, I'd rather play than watch, to be honest. Favorite dad moment.
Favorite dad moment. I'll tell you, it's all around the same theme. When the kids from the age of 3 until 18, I would take them all on a trip every year by myself. And it would be 3 to 5 days, wherever they want to go. If I didn't have any money, it might be, we'll go there, but we're going to stay in the Motel 6, and we're going to drive. to, Kyle got his chipped out of his trip last year, so we're going to Egypt for COVID. So his trip will be to Egypt this year. But for me, as a dad who worked a whole bunch and traveled a whole bunch, to be able to say 3 or 4 days with my kid where it's just me and we've got to sort crap out by ourselves. Love that every single year.
So do you take one child on a trip or all 3?
No, one child. Each got a trip by themselves every year. Now that they're all older now, the house is a little different because they're getting married and we don't do that anymore. But no, we would do. It would be just 3 to 4 days every year. I do 4 trips a year.
Very nice.
And it doesn't have to be spending a lot of money. We might go down to San Diego because I'm an hour away, and we might go to the zoo, and we go to the wild animal park, or we might walk around the park. It's not about money; it's about time.
I love that. This is the worst rapid fire round. So, at March Madness, funny enough, you said you don't like it. Me and my dad went to Vegas, and obviously I'm older, but it was like, hey, I got to spend 3 or 4 days with my dad watching basketball games and just hanging out. Like, I don't even think I gambled at all. Like, just watched basketball games and hung out with my father.
Mhm.
Like, it was great.
If you guys haven't started doing that, I strongly suggest you start doing that with your kids. You will. It's just a whole other experience. They
Yeah,
can't
I
call their
really do
mom.
like
They
that.
can't do anything like that. And there's just you guys, and you got to figure it out. It's fun.
So what we've done, my wife and I, and we've done this since our kids were young, is on their birthday, we'll take the child's birth, whoever birthday it is, and we'll take them out to dinner, just the three of us.
Yep.
And
Try going away
it's
for 4
been
days with your kid by yourself, and that's a whole other world. You can't hand them off to anybody.
Yeah.
You got to entertain them the whole time by yourself. It's like it just changes everything. And the relationship, holy cow, it really tweaks it. Like you and your daughters, it's really special.
That's definitely on my to do.
Favorite vacation spot?
I've got a cottage with my brother up in Canada. That's where I grew up. We have it together. It's a great deal for him. I pay half, and he gets to use it all the time. But I'm there a couple times here.
And this is between favorite dad moments. This is my favorite question. Best dad joke.
That's
dad.
always a
Okay,
stumper.
I'm going to give you my only joke I know. It's probably a dad joke to a point. All right. Guy walks out on the ice. He's got his auger and he's going to dig a hole in the ice, go ice fishing. So he's digging this hole, draining this hole. He hears, "There's no fish under the ice." He looks up. He goes, "Okay." He picks up his bucket and his auger. He moves over like 50 feet, maybe 30 feet. And he starts drilling again. "There's no fish under the ice." He stops. He looks up. He goes, "God? God? No, this is the ice rink manager." That's about as dad joke as I get, guys. Sorry.
That's great. Oh my God,
That's
great.
awesome.
So, Jason, where can our listeners find information or find?
Yeah. So
find
if
you?
you go to guys, if you go to tellmystory.org, tellmystory.org, you'll find my hot lava talk that talks about the difference between when I grew up and when Ryan grew up. That's a TED talk. You'll see a goal cast that I filmed in Montreal, talking to a bunch of dads, which they did a really good job on. You can go to Amazon Prime or any streaming service and tell my story in the movie. The movie What I Wish My Parents Knew, the trailer is up on Tell My Story, and that's a film where I interviewed 9 kids about their mental health, and we have a 45-minute program that you can see me talking to these kids about their mental. It's fascinating to watch the entire thing. It's only available as a school program, because we put it into schools for parents to watch. 45 minutes of that and 45 minutes of a mental health expert coming in locally to talk to you about your kids and how to talk to your kids. That's what that new film is. And that's what I wish my parents knew. And I'd love anybody's help. You can reach out to us on the site. I've got a whole team that'll help you bring that to your school. I know the school year's ending, but we're ramping up to do a whole bunch of these, probably 300-400 of them in the fall. And the final one I've got that's brand new and I'm really, really proud of is my musical partners and I put together an album with BMG Music that comes out on the 21st of the month, and it's called Songs for the Drive Home. And Songs for the Drive Home is exactly what it sounds like. We wrote 10 songs for you to play in the car with your kids. Side A is for younger kids, tweens. Side B is for older kids. And they're all songs about mental health. That's kind of done in the Jack Johnson kind of style, where you're going to listen to it, they're going to listen, you're going to enjoy the music, you can tap your foot, kind of hum along, but there's a meaning behind every song, and it's meant to spark conversations in the car. Because most of these great conversations you can have with your kids can happen in the car. So Songs for the Drive Home is on BMG Music. It comes out on the 21st of May.
That's amazing. That is fantastic. I love that, Songs for the Drive Home. But yeah, I mean, that's where a lot of the conversations can be sparked, is on the drive home.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you'll be able to find that on all the streaming services and all kind of junk.
So if this is something that, I mean, I'd love to contact my kid's school to let them know about this. Just go to the website, tellmystory.org.
You go to tellmystory.org, and you can just fill out the contact form, and my people will get back to you, and we'll help put it in the school. I look at my missions to get this into 300-400 schools this year. Ideally 500 by the end of the year. It's a pretty big goal, but I am trying to make a huge difference with parents and helping them own their kids' mental health and show them what to do to make sure that they don't have to go through what I did.
I'm definitely going to talk to kids' school.
Is it middle school, high school, elementary school?
Yeah, it's middle school, high school. It's elementary school. Like, here's the challenge, guys. The kids are getting younger and younger. The attempts by kids who are 8, 9, 10 years of age is crazy. When you watch what I wish my parents knew, it opens with a kid who's talking about when she's 7 years old, how she tried to attempt. These kids are saying that 7, 8, you think that this comes up when they're 12, 13, 14, 15 years of age, 17 years of age. It doesn't. A lot of them knew exactly how they felt when they were 7 and 8. They knew they were different. They didn't know what to say about it. So yes, it's for elementary schools. It's for middle schools. It's for parents.
I think a lot has to do with how, back when I grew up, you grew up, there were no phones. You went out, you played, you hung out with your friends. You came home when the lights went on, and you had dinner. I think the issue is these smart devices. Information is at your fingertips. Bullying doesn't stop at the end of the school day. Bullying continues because there's online. It's crazy.
You're absolutely right. But I want you to understand something, everybody, is that you can change this for your kids. You can make a difference. It's not about a therapist. You send them to a therapist, if you even have the money to do it, it's going to happen 1 hour a week, whatever, a month, 2-3 hours a week. They're with you 168 hours a week, where they're your responsibility. You will make a difference in your kid's life. You can save your kids. You can change their depression. You can change their anxiety. You can do this. You just have to do it. You have to take the time and talk to them.
Jason, one last question that we ask all fathers. If you could impart a few words of wisdom to any new fathers, soon to be fathers, or even seasoned fathers, what would it be?
Well, you're going to screw it up. It's okay. You're going to say the wrong thing. You're going to be tired. You're going to be angry at coming home from work. You're going to say the wrong thing. It's okay. Don't give up, and don't think that it's ever gone too far, that you can't come back from it. My daughter and I, after Ryan passed, didn't talk for 2.5 years. She didn't like the fact that I was doing the movie. She didn't like how public I was going. There's a whole bunch of things that we didn't get along with. She felt that I didn't treat her well. It wasn't until she was 22 that we started talking again. And there was a time I didn't think we'd ever talk again. But didn't give up. And this is a big thing with girls. These days, lots of people find 18, 20-year-old girls they just end up not wanting to talk to their parents for a while. But just no matter what happens, don't give up. They'll come back. My daughter's getting married on June 17th, and I am doing the ceremony, which is really weird. Really weird that they'd have me do anything, but so I'll be marrying them both. So don't worry about it. Just keep trying your best. That's all you can do.
Thank you very much, Jason. Those are great words. And that's another reason why we do this podcast, is to get the word out to other dads, to open up, be vulnerable. You got to talk, which is super important.
Guys, it's not easy. Not easy being a dad, not easy being a guy. We get beat up a lot these days by the world, but being guys, about doing guy stuff, I think it's okay being a guy. I think it's great being a guy. And I don't think we need to apologize for being guys.
Nope. No, we don't.
Yep.
Thank you, Jason, for coming on the show. We really appreciate it. I think this was great, and hopefully we'll get the word out, and our listeners will spread the word too.
Thanks, guys. I really appreciate it.